All right. Hey everyone, welcome back to Elizabeth Squared. So today we're talking about number talks, and we're not just talking about what they are, but what they actually reveal about how students think mathematically. We're going to be focusing on two different things. Mostly an example of a number talk and how the strategies we hear connect to learning and math.
Yes, because number talks might look like simple classroom conversations, but
Mhm.
they're actually one of the most powerful ways to see like how students think about math and just like what they're processing when they see a math problem.
So, I guess we can start by looking at a number talk. We haven't actually well, we did some designing in class with like the groups that we did the other day, but
Mm.
um, I guess we could start with if you're doing like a lesson on addition. So, thinking off the top of my head, Um, if we were to put 9 plus 6 up on the board, I feel like that's a very simple, like, problem, but you can use a lot of different ways to think about that. Hold on.
And that's a good problem too. It's really small, but you can get so many different like strategies and see so many different ideas from just 9 plus 6.
Exactly. And then that's why I chose it. I mean, if I wanted to see, I wanted to see if students were still like relying on counting or if they were beginning to use number relationships. I mean, you would give students quiet time to think, ask them to solve mentally, and like we do in class, like we don't use calculators, we don't use paper, we don't use pencils, nothing. And then we're kind of reminding them that we're just focusing on the strategies, not just the answers.
That is like that's pretty much the key is
Oh yeah.
just letting them do their thing. And because
Yeah.
the goal of number talks isn't speed, it's making things visible and making them see their process on like the whiteboard.
So the first strategy I would look for is if I heard from a student who said, "Oh, I counted like it all," and then they held up their fingers and counted from 1 to 15. That could be one of the strategies.
Exactly. And that's really important information for the teacher as well when you think about it, because that student is using direct modeling or like the counting all strategy. And that shows that
Yeah.
they see addition as combining two sets and they're counting every single object.
Yeah. And it also tells like me that the students aren't still relying on the one-to-one correspondence.
Mm,
Numbers aren't flexible quantities in their mind. They're still like waiting and like collecting to be counted,
yeah,
I guess if you want
exactly.
to put it that
What
way.
would come next?
I mean it's hard to tell like just based off like your imagination thinking rather than if we were to actually like do it. But
Hmm.
I mean another student could say, "Oh, I started at like the number 9 and I counted on. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 until they got to 15, which would be the answer."
Yeah, honestly, that's what I would do. But,
Yeah, me
and
too.
that's already a huge, big developmental shift. And they're
Yeah.
using the counting on strategy there, which is more efficient and shows that they understand nine as like a whole number that they can build from.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they no longer really need to restart at the number 1, and
Hmm.
that's growing number sense.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and then another student, I mean, could say, "Oh, I did 9 plus 1 to make 10, and then I added the other 5 to make 15." I guess it really depends on the grade level as
Hmm.
well. I've noticed that, but
Yeah,
just by
but like
seeing things and stuff, it
exactly.
depends.
And that's what's so good about this too, is it really can be for any grade level. But that right
Any,
there
yeah.
is the make a 10 strategy. Like they are like you can
Yes.
just see how these kids are
Oh,
strategically
yeah.
thinking about it. And that's where you really start to see like the relational thinking of like, oh, like the tens and where can I go from there and stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, that strategy, like, made visible that the student understands part whole relationships. Wow, I feel like I haven't really like said that word out loud since like freshman year. I feel like we talked about that a lot in
Yeah,
freshman year.
right.
Um, and what was that one word that we used in that freshman year? It wasn't like we can't say like carry on or
Like
like
take
it
apart.
was like what was that? And it's not regrouping. She mentioned it a lot. Dr. King mentioned it a lot. Oh, it was decomposing, right? Or
Mm.
decompose.
Yeah,
What
no,
was
it
that?
was because it's
It was,
what a
yes.
worm does in the dirt.
Yes,
So,
yes. Oh my gosh. That I
like, that's
remember
why.
hearing that and I was like, oh my gosh. So I guess you could say in this sense they decomposed six into one
Hmm.
and then five or six into one and five and then used that structure of our base 10 system. Wow. It's so weird bringing all this stuff up after
I know,
like
right? Like,
so
oh my
many
gosh,
years.
it's actually relevant. Like, that's
I know.
crazy.
It actually works.
So, like, in one short number talk, like, you could see three completely different levels of understanding.
hmm
And
Yeah.
in some cases, they could all be the same too. Like, and
Yeah.
then you just know where your class is at. And if this had just been a worksheet, all you'd see is like 15 written down. You wouldn't, or you just see them adding things together. Like, you wouldn't hear what they're thinking in their head.
Exactly. It just the number talks kind of like reveal the process, not the actual product itself, which is so important when it comes to learning math and all of that stuff.
Exactly. And this is where like learning trajectories come in because
Mhm.
those strategies, they aren't just random.
No.
They're
No.
not just like they don't just know how to do that. They actually line
Mm-mm.
up along like the developmental path. Like they are part
Definitely.
of how kids learn math.
Describes how students thinking typically, wow, not speaking English today. Thinking it typically grows over time, moving from more concrete, less efficient strategies towards more like abstract and more efficient ones.
Exactly. And so the counting all strategy that we heard at like an earlier point, or we talked about at an
Yeah,
earlier point, like students depend on physical or mental objects and
yeah.
treat numbers as separate items that they just count.
Yeah. And I mean, the counting on is the next step that goes along with this. I mean, students begin treating numbers as units and add on to them rather than
Hmm.
just starting just from scratch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And these number talks, they let teachers see where the students are on that path. And
Mhm.
it's like a live snapshot of like their development in their brain. And it's
Yeah.
just so interesting to see where they really are, something you wouldn't get on a worksheet.
No. And I mean, that matters like a lot for instruction. If most
Hmm.
students are still counting on, like I at least know in my head, I need to design like certain tasks that help them notice number relationships,
Yeah,
like numbers or like using tens instead of pushing formal methods too soon. Yeah.
exactly. And it's because learning doesn't happen in jumps. Like you can't just
Mm-mm.
skip from like counting all straight to abstract
Yeah.
algorithms and expect them to really understand.
Yeah. I mean, number talks just help us. They teach along the trajectory and they support their growth in like learning just step by step.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also think number talks change how students see math. I mean,
hmm
I know it did for me, like, because we started doing them freshman year,
Yeah.
and it, like, when multiple strategies are shared, like, students will realize, like, there isn't just one
Oh,
set way to
definitely.
think it through.
Exactly. And I mean, that builds a lot of flexibility. A student counted on might hear the make a 10 strategy and start trying it for themselves.
Exactly. And so students aren't just solving a problem, they're
hmm
actually learning so many strategies and being able to take them in. And sometimes it's easier to hear that too from other students
Oh, yeah.
rather than the teacher.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like just doing the number talks like freshman year. And I mean, even being a freshman and like new into education, it's like
Hmm.
all these different things being thrown at the board. I'm like, wow. I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Yep. Like I didn't know that was a thing. That sounds
No.
good.
Yep.
Like,
And I mean, this stuff is like huge for long-term math success. I mean, flexible thinkers can choose efficient strategies based on like the numbers that they see themselves.
exactly. And like it also totally shifts how the kids are in the classroom if you think about it.
Oh,
Like
definitely.
once a kid starts listening to another kid, like and comparing the methods, like they can make sense. Or sometimes
hmm
if say there was a kid that saw 6 plus 9 and went, I have absolutely no idea how to do that. Sometimes
Yeah.
hearing another kid explain it in like their terms could totally help
Oh,
them
yeah.
get it. Like it's like sometimes when kids hear things from like their friends rather than the adult, like it just clicks a little better. And that's what's so
Definitely.
good about this.
Yeah, and I mean, it deepens the understanding, because I mean, explaining and hearing explanations
Hmm.
definitely helps like solidify those concepts.
Exactly. So the big picture, one number talk with 6 plus 9
Yeah.
revealed where students were along a learning trajectory and from counting all to counting on to using different number relationships.
And I mean, that information helps teachers move students forward intentionally instead of just covering content, which honestly, these number talks, like I never knew about them before. I never did them in
No,
school.
we didn't
So,
either.
I mean, learning about these in our classes right now, I mean, I feel like that's going to be very essential to like start off a math lesson or whatever, even if it has nothing to do with what we're learning with. Like, I feel like it's a good way to get your brain thinking, and
Yeah,
it's
and
not something that's going to sit there and make kids like cry over it.
exactly. And I
It's
love that it almost starts off your math class immediately with participation. Like they're gonna want to like it
Oh yeah.
immediately gets them like hooked in on the lesson.
Oh
And
yeah.
like number talks, they show us how that math learning is developmental and
hmm
connected, and it's really built over time.
Oh yeah. And I mean that's why they're just I guess so powerful. I mean
Hmm.
they just a simple problem into insight about how children's and their your students like mathematical thinking is just growing by each time you do it.
Yeah, and honestly, it's really like watching the understanding develop in real time too, because how they think about a problem at the beginning of the
hmm
year is going to be so much different than how
Oh,
they're thinking at the
definitely.
end of the year, and you're going to be able to see that every day that you do these little math talks.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to doing in my classroom. I mean,
Yep.
even on field work when we go and do that, but not just that, like doing it in my own classroom, like having those students start thinking and me being able to
Hmm.
see their process. I mean, it kind of like what we kind of just talked about reminds me of in Dr. King's class when we did a number talk as like in the beginning. She was saying how she could see all of our thought processes,
Yep.
like when our eyes were moving or some people were using their fingers, like she can see that. And I think that's really cool because when you think about it, it's like, wow, you can actually see these kids like learning
Yes.
in their head. Like it's so cool to see that.
And it really gives you a moment too to just stand there and watch
hmm
all the kids doing it too. Like
Oh yeah.
they're all just trying to figure it out in that minute or 2 minutes that you give them to quietly figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's why like there really should be more number talks. Like we should be doing number
Oh,
talks
definitely.
instead of the kids coming in the morning and doing like a math worksheet or
Yeah,
like,
like plopping it down, being
yeah,
like,
like
here you
not an exit
go.
ticket, but whatever that little slip is that you do, like morning work or whatever it is. Like it
Yeah.
really, we should be doing number talks.
Oh, definitely. I couldn't agree more. I can't wait to add that into my lesson plans when I become a
Me
teacher. Oh, it's
too.
going to be amazing.
All
Well,
right.
that's our math talk for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed Zoom version, of course.
Yes, we're hoping to be in person next week, so
Next
keep
time.
your fingers crossed.
Yeah, seriously.
But bye, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.